Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. I hope you're doing well. I want to just mention Ramla Ali because she's got a lot of heat over her post-fight interview. At the weekend she beat Alejandra Guzman, got revenge on her, and during her post-fight, or at the end of her post-fight interview, she said "Free Palestine," okay, which is obviously a political statement. Now, I'm not going to get into, what my opinions are on the Israeli-Palestine thing. That's not the purpose of this video. Some people say you shouldn't bring politics into sport. And as a boxing channel, I'll cover all elements of boxing. That's not really an issue for me. Whether I like promoters, whether I like certain fighters, whether I like the country in which the bouts are being held, the system. I mean, I covered the Fury and Garnered thing, which is in Saudi Arabia. I've made my opinions on Saudi Arabia clear in previous videos, but I'll still cover boxing because, shouldn't bring politics into boxing. Well, I would sort of half agree. I would say that unless boxing is being used as a political tool, which it clearly is with Saudi Arabia and the sportswashing thing and all that stuff, then, I mean, I would definitely bring politics into it if that's the case. I would point out that, something like sportswashing it's relevant to boxing because boxing is being used, so is sport and entertainment and everything else. But also, there are some things that are more important than boxing. And okay, maybe you can keep the two separate up to a point, but when politics gets mentioned, when boxing is used as a political tool, I think you have to step in and say something. Now, in the case of Ramla Ali, that's not the case, because she sort of randomly said at the end, it's obviously a subject she feels passionately about, Free Palestine, okay? It had nothing to do with the fight, nothing to do with where the fight was held. It was held in Monte Carlo. But she's entitled to her opinion. And a lot of people have been saying they've been giving her flack because she has, in effect, brought politics into boxing, where the two are not connected. There is no sort of connection, no sports washing going on here or anything like that. It's her belief, and she used her platform as a fighter, being interviewed on television, to say what she felt. Okay, you can criticise her for that, fine. However, bear something in mind, that the most famous, probably not the most famous boxer, probably the most famous athlete who ever lived, Muhammad Ali, did precisely that. Now, you could argue that he had to do that because he was being drafted and he was being threatened with imprisonment if he didn't step forward to accept the draft. He didn't. He made many, many political and social statements over many, many years. And at the time, as revered and saintly and canonized as Muhammad Ali now is, at the time, most people were against him. Most people, right up to the first Joe Frazier fight, they wanted Frazier to win that fight, most people. They called it Ali a draft dodger, anti-American, all the usual stuff. But he stood to his guns. He said, you can put me in front of a firing squad, I don't care. And history judged him in an extremely favourable way because as everything panned out, they could see the reality of the Vietnam War. Certain documents got released, well, many documents that were previously top secret were released, and the whole confidentiality thing dissipated, and suddenly you had, transparency and an insight into what had gone on, and people judged the war and its participants, and people like Muhammad Ali who spoke out against it. As he famously said, no Viet Cong ever called me nigger. Okay, so which is a pretty powerful statement. So yeah, that's the perfect example. If you're going to slag off Ramla Ali for saying two words, Free Palestine, where do you stand on Muhammad Ali? You've got to have some sort of, again, moral consistency here. Otherwise, with any moral point, if you don't have consistency, it becomes redundant. It becomes fake, fraudulent. Now, of course, Muhammad Ali is considered to be, pretty much a saint in the modern world. But let's not pretend he was Snow White, regardless of what you think about his stance on the Vietnam War. Some of his statements about race, the Nation of Islam and so on and so forth, they were controversial, even in that time when that whole thing was, when certainly there was far less political correctness, with regards to words and statements. They were considered controversial then. Segregation. Ali famously at one point even met with members of the Ku Klux Klan. But young people, sometimes they do stupid things, and life don't come with a handbook, especially if you're thrust at such a young age into extreme fame and fortune, and are seen as he was effectively used by the Nation of Islam as a tool, political tool. You have to find your own way. You still find your own identity at that age. Never mind, sorting out what you believe politically. And your politics are essentially your morals. Now, Muhammad Ali once famously said, "The man who thinks the same at 50 as he did at 20 has wasted 30 years of his life." So, of course, everything grows, everything evolves. And that was the same with him. And, of course, by the time he'd retired, and certainly well into his retirement, it didn't bother him what colour you were. It didn't bother him what faith you were. He treated human beings as, just a race, one race, or shall we say a species, and it didn't bother him. So it's the same with anyone. A lot of people do make political statements because they feel very passionately about certain issues. Now, you do get a lot of virtue signalling, and you do get a lot of people who are fake and latch on to these causes, social causes, international geopolitical causes. They latch onto them because it makes them look good. But I don't think you can say that of Muhammad Ali, just using him as a perfect example. And I don't think you can say that as Ramla. Don't think you can say that about Ramla Ali either, because if you look at her background in Somalia and how tough she had it, and how she had to essentially, figuratively and literally fight her way out of her circumstances, I would imagine that she does feel very passionately about the Palestinian cause. Whether you agree with her or not, it's not about whether I agree with her or whether you. I'm just talking about her. So I do understand when people want to use their platform to discuss things that are very passionate. And I don't think that everybody that does that is a virtue signaller. I think that phrase is overused. There are some people that say things and know what the hell they're talking about, but they're entitled to say it. And as far as this platform is concerned, I'll continue to cover boxing wherever it is, regardless of whether I like, promoters, the fighters, the regimes, or whatever it is. But nevertheless, I do bear in mind that there are some things more important than boxing, even though at times, I just love boxing. Boxing and music are my two great loves, and I'll always love them. So just a few thoughts on Ramla Ali and the question of when is it right to bring politics into boxing. As I say, for me, it's when boxing is being used as a political tool. That's when I'll mention politics, like I did with the Saudi thing. But some people may feel, well, no, Ramla Ali and whoever, they're entitled to use their platform to bring politics into it because there are things that are more important than boxing. I don't know, what do you think? Leave your comments below. I'm always interested to hear them. I'm not interested in your stance on Israel, Palestine, or any other political issue. I mean, you can write what you like, but the point of this video is that is the question. Should politics, or when is it right to bring politics into boxing, if ever? Comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thanks as always for your time, and we will speak again soon. Bye for now.